The sun was setting over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the backyard as I stood by the barbecue pit, tongs in hand, flipping burgers with practiced ease. The air smelled of sizzling meat and charred wood, mingling with the faint aroma of freshly cut grass. It was supposed to be one of those perfect summer evenings, a gathering filled with laughter, good food, and friends. But beneath the surface, there was an undercurrent of tension that even the most oblivious guest couldn't ignore. I had planned this barbecue meticulously. Every detail mattered. The marinated ribs slow-cooked for hours, the homemade coleslaw sitting proudly on the picnic table, the string lights twinkling above like stars fallen from the sky. This wasn't just any get-together. It was my way of showing everyone, especially him, that we were still okay, that everything was fine, or at least that's what I wanted them to believe. Him, my husband Daniel, he stood nearby chatting animatedly with our neighbor Jake about some obscure sports statistic or another. They both laughed heartily, their voices carrying through the warm evening air. From afar, they looked like old friends catching up after years apart. And maybe they were for all I knew. Daniel probably spent more time talking to Jake than he did to me these days. It wasn't always like this. Once upon a time, Daniel and I used to have conversations like that with each other. We'd talk endlessly about everything and nothing, sharing stories, dreams, fears. Back then, every moment together felt infinite, as though time itself bent to accommodate our connection. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Slowly but surely, the spark dimmed, replaced by long silences and unanswered questions. At first, I chalked it up to stress, the pressures of work, family obligations, life in general. Then came the late nights, the forgotten anniversaries, the excuses that grew thinner with each passing month. By the time I realized what was happening, it was already too late. Or so I thought. As if on cue, she walked into my line of sight, her presence slicing through the cheerful atmosphere like a knife. She was tall, elegant, with hair the color of honey cascading down her shoulders and waist. Her smile was disarming, her laugh musical, drawing attention wherever she went, and yet, despite her undeniable beauty, there was something cold about her, something calculating, something predatory. Her name was Victoria, or Vicky as she preferred to be called. She worked at Daniel's office, a junior executive who'd climbed the ranks faster than anyone else in the company. To the outside world, she was ambitious, driven, the epitome of success. But to me, she was something else entirely, the woman who'd stolen my husband's heart. When I first heard rumors about their affair, I dismissed them outright. Denial is a powerful thing, especially when you're clinging desperately to the remnants of a marriage you thought was unbreakable. But denial can only last so long before reality comes crashing down around you. The truth hit me like a freight train one rainy afternoon when I stumbled upon a text message on Daniel's phone, a single sentence that left no room for interpretation. "You make me feel alive again." Alive again. Those words replayed in my mind constantly, gnawing at me like a parasite. How could someone who made me feel dead deserve such devotion? Had I really become invisible, irrelevant, replaceable? But instead of confronting him, I chose silence. Part of me hoped he'd come clean on his own, confess everything, and beg for forgiveness. Another part feared the answer, terrified of shattering the fragile illusion of normalcy we'd managed to maintain. So I smiled through gritted teeth, played the role of the devoted wife, and waited for the storm to pass. Until today. Victoria sauntered toward us, her high heels clicking against the patio stones. She carried herself with confidence as though she owned the place, or perhaps as though she already belonged here. Her eyes scanned the crowd briefly before landing on Daniel, softening into something resembling affection. He noticed immediately, his entire demeanor shifting as he turned to greet her. "Oh, Vicky!" he exclaimed, surprise masking whatever guilt he might have felt. "What are you doing here?" "I told you I'd stop by," she replied coyly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Besides, your wife invited me." "I told you I'd stop by." Her casual use of the word "a wife" stung. It wasn't said maliciously, but it still pierced me. I forced myself to keep smiling, stepping forward to extend a hand. "Hi, Victoria. Welcome to our little gathering." She shook it briefly, her grip firm but brief. "Thank you for having me. Your home is lovely, a thank." I gestured toward the food-laden tables. "Help yourself to anything you want. Drinks are over there." For a moment, I considered walking away, letting them have their reunion without interference. But something inside me snapped, a fuse blown by months of pent-up anger and betrayal. Instead, I found myself joining them, determined not to let her take center stage. So I began, keeping my tone light. "How do you two know each other?" Daniel glanced between us nervously, clearly sensing the danger lurking beneath my seemingly innocent question. "Well, we work together," he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. "Yes," Victoria chimed in smoothly, filling the awkward pause. "We collaborate on several projects. He's quite talented." Talented? Another stab to the gut. Did she mean professionally, or was this some veiled reference to their trysts? Either way, the implication hung heavy in the air, unspoken but unmistakable. Before I could respond, Jake interrupted, saving us all from further discomfort. "Hey, Dan, try one of these sliders. Laura made them herself." "Oh, definitely," I said quickly, seizing the opportunity to redirect the conversation. "Let me grab you a plate." I busied myself assembling sandwiches, grateful for the distraction. As I handed the tray to Daniel, however, I caught Victoria watching me intently, her expression unreadable. For a split second, our gazes locked and I saw it. The challenge, the dare. She knew exactly how much pain she caused and she reveled in it. That night, once the guests had gone home and the cleanup was complete, I sat alone on the porch swing staring out at the darkened yard. The barbecue had ended on a relatively pleasant note, thanks largely to my efforts to keep things civil. No scenes, no confrontations, no dramatic exits. Just polite small talk and forced smiles. But now, with the facade stripped away, the weight of reality pressed down on me harder than ever. How could I continue living like this, pretending everything was fine while my marriage crumbled around me? More importantly, why should I? Somewhere deep within me, a fire ignited, a fierce determination to reclaim control of my life. If Daniel wanted to throw it all away for someone else, fine. Let him have her, but he wouldn't destroy me in the process. Not anymore. And so, with trembling hands, I poured myself a glass of wine and raised it high, making a toast to the man I once loved and the woman who took him from me. "To new beginnings," I whispered, draining the glass in one go. "May your happiness burn brighter than mine ever did." Then I grabbed a matchstick from the kitchen drawer and stepped back inside. The house was eerily quiet as I moved through the hallways, collecting items that symbolized Daniel's betrayal. First, I tackled his wardrobe, pulling out shirts, pants, ties, anything that screamed professionalism and deceit. Each piece represented countless meetings, dinners, and late nights spent away from home, presumably with her. I piled them onto the dining table, creating a mountain of fabric that seemed to grow taller with every passing minute. Next, I rummaged through his drawers, searching for personal effects that might hold sentimental value. A leather-bound notebook caught my attention, its cover embossed with his initials, inside pages upon pages detailed ideas for presentations, notes scribbled during brainstorming sessions, and love letters written in flowing cursive script, letters addressed to Victoria. My breath hitched as I read them, tears blurring my vision, words of longing, desire, promises of forever, all directed at her. How dare he reduce our years together to mere footnotes in his pursuit of passion? Anger surged through me, fueling my resolve. Without hesitation, I tossed the notebook onto the growing pile. By the time I finished gathering everything, sweat dripped down my forehead, mixing with the salty residue of tears. My heart pounded wildly in my chest, adrenaline coursing through my veins. This wasn't just destruction, it was liberation. With each item added to the pyre, I felt lighter, freer, more alive than I had in months. Finally, everything was ready. I carried the bundle outside, laying it carefully on the ground near the barbecue pit. The scent of smoke still lingered in the air, a reminder of the earlier festivities. Only this time, the flames would serve a different purpose, not cooking, but cleansing. With steady hands, I struck the matchstick, watching as the tiny flame danced across the tip. Slowly, deliberately, I leaned down and touched it to the edge of the pile. Instantly, the material caught fire, spreading rapidly until the entire heap was engulfed in orange and yellow hues. Heat radiated off the blaze, warming my face as I stood back to watch. It was mesmerizing, almost poetic. Each flicker of light illuminated fragments of memories, some painful, others bittersweet. There was the shirt he wore on our first date, the tie he donned for our wedding, the jacket he bought me on our honeymoon. All consumed by the inferno, reduced to ashes and dust. And yet, amidst the destruction, I felt peace. A strange, profound sense of clarity washed over me, banishing the doubts and insecurities that plagued me for so long. I didn't need him to validate my worth. I didn't need his approval to define my existence. I was enough exactly as I was. As the fire burned itself out, leaving behind only smoldering embers, I returned indoors feeling lighter, stronger, renewed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, undoubtedly. But for the first time in ages, I faced them without fear. Because tomorrow I would begin building a life that truly belonged to me. Morning broke slowly, sunlight filtering through the curtains and casting golden streaks across the bedroom floor. I woke early as usual, but today felt different. Gone was the heaviness that typically accompanied dawn, replaced by a strange sense of anticipation. Today marked the start of something new, something untainted by lies and betrayal. The remnants of last night's bonfire greeted me as I stepped outside, the charred remains of Daniel's belongings scattered across the backyard. Seeing them reminded me of the catharsis I experienced, the raw emotion that fueled my actions. It wasn't just about revenge or vindication, it was about reclaiming power, asserting my independence, proving to myself that I could stand alone. Still, I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Breaking free from a relationship, especially one as deeply rooted as ours, was never simple. There would be moments of doubt, times when loneliness crept in, whispering cruel truths in my ear. Yet for the first time, I felt prepared to face them head on. Inside, I prepared breakfast, opting for something hearty and comforting, pancakes drizzled with maple syrup, scrambled eggs, and crispy bacon. While eating, I reviewed my plan for the day. Step 1 involved clearing the rest of Daniel's belongings from the house. Anything salvageable would go to charity. The rest would join its predecessors in the trash. Step 2 entailed changing the locks, ensuring neither he nor Victoria could waltz back into my life uninvited. Finally, Step 3 required updating legal documents, filing for separation if necessary, and securing financial independence. Each task loomed large, daunting in its own right, but breaking them down into manageable chunks made them seem less overwhelming. Besides, I reminded myself progress often starts with small victories. By mid-morning, I'd packed several boxes destined for donation centers. Among them were books, electronics, and miscellaneous knickknacks accumulated over the years. Some items held sentimental value, reminders of shared experiences and happy memories. Letting go hurt, but I recognized the necessity. Holding on to the past wouldn't help me move forward. Around noon, I called a locksmith to arrange an appointment. When he arrived, I explained the situation succinctly, omitting unnecessary details. He nodded sympathetically, assuring me the job wouldn't take long. Within 30 minutes, the old locks were replaced with shiny new ones, their metallic clicks echoing finality.